Good afternoon once again, and welcome to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you live from the studios here in Las Vegas of the American Guns and Glory Network. This show is about guns-related political issues and self-defense issues primarily. Our website is available at www.firedupwithbobirwin.com. So the shows that we tape here or put on here can be seen on that website, or at the moment they can be seen on YouTube. Right now YouTube is having a conniption about shows that talk about guns, so I'm not sure we'll be on YouTube forever, but we'll be on our own website forever, firedupwithbobirwin.com. Anyway, a new show comes out every Thursday at roughly 5 p.m. They stay online forever. If you miss something, you can go back and replay the shows. If you listen to the radio, we are also on the Nevada Talk Network. That is about 10 radio stations now throughout Nevada, from all the way from the north end of the state to the south end. If you go to the website KELY1230.com, that's their main station, you can get a list of all the stations that it's on. They all broadcast it at the same time, which is at noon on Saturdays. If you want to send us an email with a question or comment, you can send it to bob@firedupmail.com or leave a message on my office recorder, which is 702-257-1060. If you leave contact information, someone will call you back. We answer all inquiries and comments by email or text or telephone, depending on how you contact us. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States. As you know, if you read your local papers, rarely are the good ones covered by mainstream media. They seem to cover gang shootings and murders and don't cover self-defense use of firearms, which is about 10-1 over criminal use of firearms, 20-1 depending on whose numbers you're reading. So I always pick out a few for our listeners' edification. If we usually take the names out, we'll give you the locations, generally the city or in the town, but we're not putting them there to criticize the person involved, but to show you what happened and look at the options they had, what they did right, what they did wrong, and how if you're caught in a similar situation, you could make it better, perhaps so you don't get sued out of your socks or go to jail for something that should read as self-defense. Reasonable shootings in Nevada are not reasonable shootings in New York City. Local law prevails. So, again, we're giving you advice that keep you out of jail and out of lawsuits or losing lawsuits. But if you're involved in a case currently, someone's suing you or you got involved in a shooting, you need to get local counsel. If you don't have an attorney that can do this sort of work in your jurisdiction, get a hold of me at the aforementioned numbers and I will get an attorney for you in that area. My guest today is my friend and longtime firearms instructor, Lenny Davis. Welcome again, Lenny.
Thank you, Bob.
I am glad to have you here again. If you would, a little bit of background for our listeners.
Sure. For those of you who don't know me, my name again is Lenny Davis. I'm a retired special agent with the Department of Homeland Security. I'm also a certified anti-terrorist instructor, a subject matter expert for the State Department's Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program. And I am currently the CEO and owner of SRT Special Services, a security training and private investigations firm here in Las Vegas.
Okay, I just left my phone on. That would be a mistake. This first story, I always sometimes end up saying I didn't make this up. Comes from a report from KGUN TV9 in Tucson, Arizona. This is a very current case, happened 3 days ago. We don't have a lot of information, but it's so interesting I just had to put it on. There's so many things involved here. An individual with a handgun tried to rob a local phone store in Tucson on Sunday. A customer in the store pulled his gun and the two traded shots back and forth. When the armed suspect hit the Metro PCS store at 29th and Claycroft, if you know where that is in Tucson, he was apparently planning to just grab a few cell phones. They have a display where you can just pick them up and look at them and run away, presumably. Well, when he walked in, he pulled a mask over his face and pulled out a gun. As luck would have it, there was an armed citizen in the store with his own gun. That citizen pulled out his handgun, and the two got into a fairly short-range gunfight. Tucson police say the two traded multiple shots. The robber then ran away. It's unknown at this time whether he was hit. Monday, the doors of the shop were boarded up because the glass was shot out of them. Apparently, they both managed to hit window glass with some of the rounds. As of late Monday, police are still looking for the robber, and authorities will have to decide if the customer should face charges. Interesting. A local defense attorney, her name is Natasha Ray. I looked her up. She's a very well thought of defense attorney, criminal defense attorney in Tucson. Says if the bandit threatened the customer, there's a strong case for self-defense. However, then she went on to say, but if there aren't any actual threats toward this Good Samaritan, let's just say it's the store clerk who seems to have been threatened and is not in harm's way, then our Good Samaritan can certainly take matters into their own hands and do what we call defense of others. The attorney said the customer had no obligation to run away from the threat. Like us, they don't have in Nevada here, they don't have a duty to retreat statute, so they may stand their ground. The attorney felt it's possible the customer could be hit with charges if authorities decide he is not justified to shoot. Police say they're still investigating the case, and it's probably up to the Pima County attorney to decide if the customer broke the law. I started the discussion on this when Lenny just came in the door. Depending on the details, I suppose it's possible that this could be a bad shoot, but in reality, it appears to be a good shoot to any standard I've ever seen. And Lenny appraised me of something here.
Well, I hate to say this, but Tucson, of course, is in a lovely city that's in Pima County, Arizona. Pima County, Arizona, one of the things I was telling Bob, is probably gotten to be a very, very liberal county, probably one of the more liberal counties in the whole state of Arizona. As you recall, that was the location of when Gabby Giffords was shot a few years ago, and the other people were killed by the gunman. The problem, there's two things I have a problem with here. They're already sort of laying it out that unless he was threatened directly, like, hey, I'm going to kill everybody in the store, then they may, I could see if this is a liberal county, maybe not, the DA may be going after him. Bob, as you know, for years you've done the same FAT system, the simulators that we've done, and there's this immediately when I read this brought it to mind. This is that one where you're standing in a grocery store and you're in line in a grocery store and somebody robs the clerk. What do? And it plays several different ways in how you react to it. One of the ways he reacts to it is when you go out and say, the guy just robs the clerk and leaves the store. It's a no-shoot situation. Then it's the clerk, he shoots the clerk, same scenario, he shoots a clerk and starts to shoot other people, of course, is when it's a shoot situation. So without knowing more facts about this, did this man threaten everybody in the store? Or did he just threaten the clerk? That would be my biggest concern there. The other thing, just from a personal note, folks, as a firearms instructor for many, many years, you don't want to engage in a gun battle, especially over property, unless your life or the life of someone else you feel is in imminent jeopardy. If this guy's going to steal the phones and run out, and he's got a gun and he's an armed robber, he's got a mask, he's a bad guy. I'm not saying what he's doing is right, obviously, but you have to think. There's a lot of stuff that you're going to have to think about in a split second that a jury is going to obviously think about months and perhaps years down the road. Was there anybody in your line of fire? Were you cognizant of any? The windows were broken out of this store. Was this in a crowded shopping center? Could a round that was loosed and broke that window kill an innocent individual outside? So there's a lot of things you have to consider. And so this is going to be an interesting case to see how the DA comes down on this.
It just brings a lot of things into it that normally people don't expect. You know, you look at it on the face, the guy's come in, he's got a gun, he's got a mask on, he points a gun, and you shoot him. Well, that'd work very well in most states and most counties. We wouldn't be having this discussion. It depends, as I said in the beginning of this thing, what's a good shoot in Las Vegas is not a good shoot in New York City. And there's lots of places in between. And for practical purposes, we got to look at Pima County as New York City at the moment.
It's one of those places that has become, because of a lot of people moving there, it's a beautiful place. A lot of people have moved there that have come from liberal jurisdictions. We see a lot of that here in Las Vegas, where we've got a lot of Californians that have come here. We seem to always want to fight that. In Tucson, it seems that the more liberal mores and thoughts have been taken over and elected, and so those are the things that you have to be considerate about. So we'll see how this all plays out in the end when the DA comes down.
Could be a more interesting case than I originally thought. We're going to take just a short break here for a word from one of our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Don't go away.
My name is Jerry Creed, and I'm a gun trust attorney. If you want to own an NFA firearm, a gun trust is a great way to own it because it allows multiple people to lawfully possess a firearm instead of just a single individual. I have reviewed lots of gun trusts, and I have found they often don't include the forms you need to bring people on as trustees and remove them as trustees. In addition, a gun trust will save you the cost of probate and avoid probate, and it can protect your executor and family members. You know, there isn't an element of intent in these laws that affect the NFA firearm possession. So it doesn't matter if your wife didn't intend to sell the gun at a garage sale or yard sale, or your daughter didn't intend to drive the car with the silencer in the trunk. A gun trust is a great way to protect your family members and friends and share in the fun and pleasure of owning NFA weapons. If you want a gun trust done right, remember to trust Jerry.
And we are back. We're running some brand new equipment today. We're upgrading the studio. Every time I walk in here, we've got more stuff. So we'll make a note to send Jerry an extra bill for that extra 33 seconds he got in there. This is kind of a similar case, but it's a different case, and it'll explain why in just a minute. This is from PIX TV 11 in Newark, New Jersey. On 5/1 of 18, just a couple days ago again, a week ago, an attempted robber is in custody after being shot by an off-duty cop in a Newark barbershop. The Essex County Prosecutor's Office announced on Wednesday. The officer was a customer at the shop in the 400 block of Orange Street on Tuesday when the incident occurred just after 9 p.m. A would-be robber armed with a handgun went into the barbershop. A waiting customer happened to be an off-duty cop. Evaluating the situation, that officer fired his weapon, apparently hitting the robber. We don't know for sure at the moment. The injured robber fled and was pursued by responding officers and apprehended. The handgun believed to be his was recovered what they described as a short distance away in the 1100 block of McCarter. That's about a mile from where the barbershop is. So he made pretty good time, but the incoming units, obviously there's a guy running away from where they're going, and they spun around and went, that's odd. Yeah. And they found the gun where he tossed it in the weeds, apparently. The suspect is now being treated for a gunshot wound, which is described as non-life threatening. A second person was also detained. There are no details as to why that was or who that was, and there's very little information being released at the moment. They asked that anyone with additional information call the Essex County Prosecutor's Office Professional Standards Bureau. That's a clue. This is a little bit different case. Here, The previous case is different because law enforcement officers, depending on jurisdiction, but in some manner, all are required to do something when a violent crime happens in their presence. It can be as little as calling 911 and, watching what happens and being a good witness. But if violent crimes are taking place and people are being hurt, we actually require morally and by rule that police officers get involved. Because of that requirement, the rule allows for qualified immunity in most jurisdictions. I could do a half an hour on what qualified immunity means, but you've all seen it on the news. An officer is immune from civil lawsuits and criminal prosecution if he makes an error in judgment in fast-moving situations. We have a lot of these in the news where an officer shoots somebody and they say, well, I thought he was drawing a gun, and then he doesn't have time to discover. Because he's required to act, we have these immunity statutes that say if he did something reasonable that turns out to be wrong later, he can't be sued or charged criminally. And there's more to that theory than I could explain here. It's a long story, but I have to say that they get sued anyway. What happens is the department then is sued for failure to train or some other thing. The attorney simply go to court with a lawsuit to say, well, that qualified immunity doesn't apply here because in this case, it's outside the jurisdiction of the statute because the officer did this, that, or the other thing, or whatever.
Right.
They end up suing the department or the state or the law or the legislature rather than the officer who is the principal. That makes sense to everybody? It's a long story. But anyway, we have two very similar cases here where a bad guy comes in clearly with a mayhem on his mind, has a gun. In one, you're asked to call the Professional Standards Bureau, and the other, you're asked to call the police department if you have information. You have any interesting qualified immunity cases?
Well, this is going to be an interesting case. I as soon as I saw that the Office of Professional Standards Bureau was the point of contact, I'm surmising, now I don't know, and I would not say, but someone in this shooting must believe that there was some officer misconduct in this. But I would not comment to that, but I'm just saying because of the Office of Professional Standards. Qualified immunity was just upheld last week again by the United States Supreme Court. It is the law of the land. It's been upheld multiple occasions. It was just upheld with a university police officer out of California that shot a woman with a butcher knife, and that case went all the way to the Supreme Court and it was upheld. This appears to be a good shooting. Off-duty cop, got to do something. So they got the perp. Sorry, it's a New Jersey thing. I have to go that way. They got the perp, but they've got him. They got the suspect in custody. Got the guy got the gun off the street, and this guy's going to go to prison. So it'll be, all in all, I think a good shoot.
One would think so, and it may well be, Gisette, if an officer's involved in this jurisdiction, that's who investigates it in any case, rather than, otherwise you always have the detectives coming in from a different agency to do the investigation. You've all seen that on television because this happened in Casper, Wyoming. Casper, Wyoming police are not doing the investigation. It's being done by the state attorney general or a neighboring county sheriff's office or something. So you're not investigating your own officers, because that always, no matter how it comes out, looks like the police set it up and they're not going to go after their own.
Yeah.
This I think we've got time to get to this case. There's a lot of things here. This is from KIRO 7 TV in Maple Valley, Washington State. This is back in the 26th of last month. A local resident said people in two vehicles opened fire at 8:30 in the evening on Thursday on his house with his kids inside. The unidentified homeowner gave detectives a photo he took of those cars when they first pulled up. He said the passenger in one car pulled out a shotgun and moments later opened fire. The homeowner had seen them while out checking his animals in the evening. So this is quoting the homeowner. I walked up to them and say, "Hello, may I help you?" He told KIRO Channel 7. And they said, "Well, we think we have the wrong house." I said, "Okay, I could help you, but I'm sorry, nothing personal. I'm going to take your pictures of you guys." So I took out my cell phone because the whole thing looked fishy. This is all the homeowner saying this. The homeowner then said one of the guys even took his hat off for the picture. Then he couldn't believe what happened next. I see a guy holding a shotgun in his hand and cocking it, getting ready, apparently, for a shootout. By this time, the homeowner also had his pistol, which he does have a license to carry. I said, "Don't do it, don't be stupid, don't be stupid, don't do it." And I started backing up. He jumped out of the car. The guy was pointing the shotgun from inside one of the vehicles. The homeowner described what he did when the men opened fire. That's when I ran with my face towards him because I didn't want him to get into my house and hurt my kids. I had to defend myself and exchange fire with them somewhere around here. He's with the officers and pointing at the point where he was standing in the yard. He said, "I can't believe he wasn't hit," crediting the trees in his yard for saving his life. His wife called 911 as both cars sped off. He wants to send a message to the men who threatened his family. This was on the television. He said, "You're a bunch of losers. You're a bunch of punks. You came to my house loaded with my kids. The Kings County Sheriff's Office and their Major Crimes Unit is actively investigating the case." There's a little more to what he said on the air than what I just put, but you get the general idea. He called them out that they were punks and they better never come back. First thing that comes to mind with this is clearly a good self-defense case. He has no idea who these guys were, and his kids and his wife were in the house behind him, and he had the fortitude and the courage to charge at them instead of turning his back and getting himself killed. This second comment here is baiting criminals on TV is not really a well thought out act. I understand his feelings, but jerks like this now, I think, they're liable to think, well, we'll show him and come on back, even though it was the wrong house, now it's the right house. There's very little point in talking to the press if you're involved in a shooting. In fact, no point. Baiting dirtbags on television is questionable. Charge on.
Oh, absolutely. Here's the problem with this. From what I gathered from everything that I've read on this case, this was probably about to be a gang hit on the wrong house. They got the wrong address, wrong street, wrong people. They show up at the house, and then this guy does a great job in defending his family. Now, whether what was said, we don't know, but it was a very good shooting. End of story. He's very lucky he wasn't hit. But I am with you. The last thing in the world you're going to want to do is, okay, if this was a mistaken identity house, why do you want to make these guys come after you now? Yeah, they are punks, they are losers, but don't call them out on TV. These guys were probably went home going, God, I'm glad we didn't get our butts shot off by that guy. And oh my God, we're in the wrong house. Somebody told us the wrong place, the wrong time, the wrong street, wrong number. And the whole thing could have been, okay, fine, we're never going to go back there. But now you may antagonize these guys enough to say, well, you're going to call us out. We're going to have to show you something. Gangs are nobody to screw with, folks. I've dealt with them through my entire career. And you name it, we've dealt with them. MS-13, we've dealt with the cartels. I've dealt with a lot of street gangs in the United States. These people don't think like you and I. they live by a different code and a different set of rules. So this is my biggest problem with this is, and like you said, there is absolutely 0 point, folks, to talk to anybody on camera in the media if you're this guy. Absolutely none.
Yeah, I understand his feelings, and there was a lot more said. I gave you an earlier outline that had more of what he said
Right.
and that I was going to use on the air, but it was just foolish. And I hope he's all right. I hope they catch these guys, but they have made themselves a target, I'm afraid, for retaliation, because now they look like jerks in front of all their criminal idiot brothers. Can you imagine in the criminal underground, the ribbing they're taking for this? Because all their friends, it's been played and played over and over in Washington, Washington State, Kings County.
What I
Don't do that.
find funny is it's very similar to police officers who have gotten the wrong information and done a search warrant at a house. But these people aren't going to get. You're not going to sue these guys. These guys are going to come back, and there's a good possibility they're going to come back. And antagonizing them is just not anything you want to do.
No, I mean, you see this on a smaller level all the time when you see people get pulled over for a ticket, and the officer walks up and they say, "You fat jerk, what'd you pull me over for, you pig?" You're going to get a ticket.
Yeah.
You know, I recall in my law enforcement career years ago in the city of San Bernardino, California, that I stopped a guy, and it was a long, involved story, but he said to me, "You can't take me to jail."
Hold my beer.
I took it as a personal challenge. Of course I can. You know, this is that times 10,000. Don't antagonize people. Obviously, I mean, they know where you live. They know you took their picture. When he took the picture, that probably was signing their own death warrant, his guy's death warrant right there, because they were sure they were at the right house, and now the guy's taking the picture, they're going to have to do something. And then they realize, well, he's just John Q. Citizen. Defend your house. If they're in the yard and there's 3 cars, leave your lights on, call 911, record them from your cell phone through the window, but don't engage them, especially with your mouth. Could be a real problem. We are just about out of time, so I am going to tell you, check out our website, firedupwithboberwin.com. The current shows are up there, one after the other. The older shows were in a little different format because we've gone high def, so they're going to be added separately. They're being put up kind of as we speak. Please share these broadcasts with your friends and support our sponsors. If the commercials that keep us on the air, capitalism wins. And we'll be back next Thursday. Next week, I've got Attorney Don Green coming on. We're going to talk in great depth about some of the new gun stuff that's coming out of D.C. and Feinstein and what she's trying to do to your gun rights. You haven't seen her. She's been on TV going, "I'm going to get these guns off the street if it's the last thing," meaning all your ARs. We've got candidates in Nevada for governor that are fighting over who can take more guns away faster. It's an important election. You'll want to tune in next week and see what's going on. Thanks for watching, and you all have a good rest of your day. Thanks, Lenny.
You're welcome, Bob. Thank you.